Hello, I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. Today, in terms of talking about abuse, I wanted to talk about your abuser. You would have all had different sorts of abuses, but I think there's a common thread that if you start looking and if you go and Google the information on it, you will find that your abuser was most likely a narcissist. That's what I've noticed, that there's a trend that narcissistic people can become abusers. It doesn't mean they all become, but I would say the narcissist is very likely to, and also the sociopath. This is because those traits that they have almost enable them to do it. They will be inherently selfish. They just want their own way. They won't care about how you feel. They're not emotional like that. They're very manipulative. They can be charming and go out and look like Mr. Nice Guy and come home and be otherwise. There's lots of traits that they have that you'll actually find in your abuser. So if you've had an abuser or abusers, if you actually look at them now in terms of personality type, I think you'll find them narcissists and sociopaths, because these people have a way of acting out in a almost robotic way. They'll also be people who you don't feel you can trust, and in the case of us, you couldn't trust them, could we? And they're very two-faced. They'll have the outside person, and then I'll have the home person or the person that you actually have to deal with. They also have a coldness, like they're not very open-hearted, they're cold-hearted, I feel, and they just come from power and control, and that's what narcs and also sociopaths do. It's always about power and control with them. They're very controlling, they want everything their own way, and that means you'll just submit or you'll get hurt. They're not people who come from love, and I think they actually feign love. I don't know what their capacity is for love. It seems kind of low to me in comparison to other people. You might find it good for you to recognise this, because once I recognised that I was dealing with a narcissist, and in both cases with me, I realised why they were like they were, and I didn't almost take it so personally. It's not a personal thing. It's what they want to do and how they want to do it. And it's all about me and myself and me. And you just end up being caught in it. They also have like a sadistic nature, especially when they're veering into the sociopath, psychopath area. There's like a sadistic nature. And that's because they don't feel what you feel. They only feel what they feel. So if they're getting pleasure out of it or they're liking the domination of it, they'll do that. I once asked someone who was a narcissistic abuser why he did that. Why was he like that? And it was really interesting. He just said to me, well, when I be dominating and powerful, it gives me like a surge. I get like this surge. It's a good feeling, especially temporarily. I'll get a surge. So it's if I get a feedback and it feels good. It feels good to be abusive. It just feels good. And I feel big and strong and powerful. And I thought, wow, it was a really interesting moment for me because I was inside the head of that person. The other thing I want you to look at is the fact that narcissists are often attracted to empaths. An empath is the person who cares and feels for other people, very loving, very giving, or self-sacrificing, not selfish. And that's a perfect mix for them. If there's a few children in the house, they'll often target that one child because they won't have as much trouble with that child. The child will be quite complicit, actually. And if they're in a marriage, they might check out all the people and then choose a wife who's like that, because they're into power and control. That's what they want, and they'll get it however they need to get it. And that can be physical abuse, emotional, mental, sexual, even financial abuse. If you're with that person, they won't let you have access to the money. And I call it like social abuse, where they start to become really territorial about who you're allowed to see and your friends and start cutting you back from your family. Go and read about it on Google. There's lots of information about narcissists, particularly. Sociopaths are just a little bit off on the edge there. They're a little different. But I think you're going to find it helps you understand, because if it was your dad or your mom, brother or your partner, you will have that emotional connection to them, and you might be a little bit rose-coloured glasses and not see them as they truly are, because they are presenting that outside person who's very nice and knows what to say and knows when to buy a gift and whatever. But that's not who they really are. Their core is the narcissistic person. That's what the core is, and that's probably what you need to see, and that'll give you a bigger understanding. And also in the future, if you start feeling that people around you are narcissistic, perhaps you won't invest so much in those relationships, or particularly in a partnership. If you're an adult, don't choose that kind of partner, because they're just going to make your life hell. They also lie a lot. It's one thing I noticed. Narcissists, sociopaths are big liars. Sometimes they're really good liars, but I found some of them to be really bad liars, I thought. But they will just lie and blame shift and gaslight you. You can check out what all these things mean. And you're going to find that you'll see, as the one who was abused, that they will lie about what happened if you try and tell someone, and make it all about you, and make it like you're mental and there's something wrong with her, and I told you something wrong with him. They'll always blame shift it. So those characteristics could have been part of your abuse as well, where you weren't believed by the people because the abuser was a narcissist and they knew very well how to manipulate and rewrite the narrative and rewrite the story. So you have a situation where they're telling other people that you're mental and you've got it wrong and you're a liar, and all the things that you say aren't believed by the people, which is really, really hard. It's a form of rejection, actually, socially. However, once you realise who you're dealing with, you know who's the liar and who isn't, and you'll be more firm in your beliefs and understanding. I'm really sorry you're listening to this podcast in the sense that you have been abused, and I hope that all of us can heal from it, and I believe we can. And that's a way of us taking our power back, because the more we work on ourselves, release all those emotions, start to see it as it really was, what that person really was like, and then it'll almost depersonalise it on some level. We'll realise we're not to blame, because that's what they love doing, they'll blame you. We're not to blame, because we didn't deserve to be hit or molested or verbally abused. We didn't deserve that. A lot of the times they'll make up like, well, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had to do that, that kind of conversation. I'm sure you heard it, which is not the truth. They shouldn't have done it. They were just acting out their narcissistic tendencies. That's all they were doing, and playing power games. And that's the other thing. I play a lot of games with you. I like to play mental games if you're on the phone with them. When you grow as a grown-up, you'll find they'll play games with you, your partner. If they're an abuser, they'll mess with you. They'll mess with your mind if they can. So you need to be very clear about your fault, their fault, your responsibility, their responsibility, because they don't like to take responsibility for anything anyhow. It feels to me that they don't feel guilt. They don't seem to have a conscience. They just sort of run across the top of it and act like it didn't happen. I find that really, really an interesting thing. Like, you're going, you just bash me up, and now you want to go out and have coffee and act like this didn't happen. What the? That's what you're thinking. But they think it's quite normal now. It's over and done with. I bashed you up and you probably deserved it, and now let's go out and have coffee and act like everything's fine. There's a lot of that goes on, because in a weird way you're dealing with two people with them, the outside person and then the core person. It wasn't your fault that you were abused. It lays at the feet of the abuser, all right? Abuse is different for being disciplined. That's fair enough. When we're young, and then even as adults, our boss might discipline us. But they don't have to stand there and verbally abuse you. That's the choice they make. And I want you to start separating a little bit, and I think it'll help you heal more and more quickly as well, because you can let go of a lot of stuff, because they'll try and shame you and blame you and guilt trip you, and you can carry that with you. But once you realise, oh, hang on a minute, I think you're a narcissist, I think you're a sociopath, it all makes it just so much easier. It's like the light bulb goes on and you know what you're dealing with, and you know why they're so attracted to you as well, because they think that love is a weakness. They think gentleness is a weakness. One of them told me that they don't like to be like that because it makes them too vulnerable, so they don't want to be like that. But instead of seeing love as strength, and especially unconditional love is really hard to do, they just think it's a weakness to love someone or to forgive them. They don't like forgiving either. And they love to hold grudges and bring up the past, and we'll have to do a rerun of that. I'm hoping that you're getting better. I'm hoping that this podcast will help you. Intuitively, I just knew I had to do it right now, because I think there's a lot of stuff on the internet about narcissists, and I've done it also on my channel about real relationships, about losing friends. Go and check it out yourself, see if it fits, and if it does, change how you think about it, because it wasn't your fault. So I'm hoping you have a good week, and I'm hoping you're surrounded by many loving and kind people. I'm sending you lots of love.